stuff I enjoy.
Makes you blind, they know, rubbing neurons together. You have to be careful.
Whose idea was it of working out how to end a script by going on to something else? Because that was the biggest trick, wasn't it?
Yeah, Spike Milligan's. That was his. Yeah, I mean, you see Q4 and Q5, those early shows. Spike was doing that, and I remember watching his shows and thinking, oh my God, he's just tearing up. He's tearing up the form of comedy, you know. And we were writing stuff for the Frost Reports and things like that, and I suddenly thought, we're writing cliches, you know. We're writing 3-minute sketches with the beginning, middles, and ends, or we're writing sort of, 30-second blackouts. And there's Milligan taking things that start off with sort of, an African hut and a couple doing Mrs. Dale's diary, and then suddenly the Highlanders pipes come through, marching through, and the whole thing goes off in a different direction.
Because that was the big trick. The big problem, as you've outlined, is getting a theme, and how the hell do you know when you've stopped?
But also you kind of waste a lot of material. You can get some very funny, about 3 or 4 funny lines, but they don't go anywhere, so you have to throw them away. But this was a way of actually using that kind of material.
Did Milligan expect some credit for this? Did he?
Oh, well, we've acknowledged him. But Spike, if you're watching here, down here in Sydney, thanks a lot again.
Now, I feel partly guilty dwelling on your past at that stage, but just bear with me, because it's been a long time in meeting you. When you devised the different scripts, I get the impression that Cleese was the one who got involved with the tiny things, like the Lupin Express. See those 2 trees over there? Was he not the one who got obsessed with the minutiae or minutiae?
Yeah, I think John does like that. He likes observation, he likes logic. I mean,
to its extreme end.
Absolutely. I think it's his legal background, that he has a delight in logic and things. So, I think whereas Mike and myself, we were much more sort of into fantasy, really. We just sort of going off and you didn't know where it was going to end. And Eric, I think, was more into the verbal comedy.
Well, so did you partition what you were doing? You do this bit,
Yeah.
you do. I mean, how does it get together?
Well, I think to begin with, it was because we just went for our own, the things we liked best. But then as it went on, we started actually parodying each other. So like John and Graham would suddenly come up and read this sort of parody of something that Mike and I would write. And in fact, it would be very funny. So it would actually, we'd make it, and vice versa.
What was your first critique like?
What are the TV shows?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't remember. I think we didn't get it was silence was the first critique. Absolutely nothing. Totally, everybody ignored it. We did about 4 shows, I think, and it was like sort of throwing pennies into a bottomless pit. Nothing happened. We kept doing these shows, turning up at the studios, doing them every week. Nothing happened. And then gradually we started getting the odd review saying, there's quite a funny show on Saturday nights. And then we started getting a bit of fan mail. But it took a while. It was only by the end of the first series we were starting to feel that it was working.
When did it work in America? Because they weren't exactly subtle in those days, were they?
Oh, I
No, they weren't.
there's always been subtle Americans.
Oh.
Woody Allen would work the way.
You know what I mean, though? I think Barney Miller was the first actual sitcom I saw that had some cerebral thing to it, not pie in the face. So did it work in America?
Yeah, it took off about sort of 74. It was dead lucky, actually, because the TV shows took off on PBS, which is the public broadcasting. And it was 74, and then the Holy Grail came out about 6 months after they'd become successful. So it was kind of, it couldn't be better.
Now, you became a director of a number of films. I mean, it's one thing to want to be an actor, which you've always wanted to do, but very few people suddenly can direct. How did you learn how to direct? I mean, was it innate? Did you copy someone? Did you bluff people or what?
Oh, I don't know whether I've ever learned how to direct, actually. It's really a product of actually imitation, really. It was the same reason why I started performing, that in a way that Mike Pale and I started writing material, and then we got a bit pissed off with people sort of not performing it right, so we started, we'd better perform it ourselves as well. And really the direction was the same thing. It was the gradual realization that it was no good writing stuff and performing it. You actually had to control where the camera goes and the locations. You had to control everything if the thing was going to work. So it was kind of, it was really just a great relief, actually, to start directing.
How do you adjust to the bigness of a film? You know, location, the amount of preparation to get something that's in your mind that's on the storyboard onto the film. I mean, look at some of the films like The Life of Brian and what have you. We're talking about big locations. We're talking about, to my mind, enormous fantasies.
Yeah.
What didn't work? Or what couldn't you get is more to the point.
Well, I mean, sometimes it was accident, you know. I mean, like, there was the scenes of the crowds. One of the most impressive scenes in Life of Brian is actually total accident. It was the crowds going up the hillside towards the Sermon on the Mount scene. And, in fact, what had happened was we'd been shooting the Sermon on the Mount scene as I'd storyboarded it. And came 4 o'clock, suddenly our entire crowd disappeared. And they'd all gone back to the coaches. I mean, we're still filming. What's happened to them? And in fact, what it turned out, our entire crowd were all women. And they'd all said, no, we've got to go home and cook dinner for the husbands. And so our Tunisian assistant directors had to go into the coaches and drive them out and up the hill again. And they were just all walking up the hill again, going, mutter, 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 we've got to go. And it was Eric who suddenly said, I was sort of looking the other way, and Eric said, look, it looks great, quick, turn the camera on them. And so we turned the camera on them and got them walking up.
You have actually dressed up as a lady a few times. Has that created the odd...
I have, yes, it's true.
Is it?
Yes, it is true. I mean, in films, I've dressed up as a lady. The awful thing is I always look like my mum used to. It's awful. It's so
what
sad.
did she say when she saw the films?
I think she'd actually died, unfortunately, before we made the films. We'd done the TV shows.
But what about the TV show? Did she?
Yeah, she'd seen the TV shows. Yeah.
She'd probably say a very mumsy sort of thing, wouldn't she say? Do you have to do that sort of thing?
Yes. Well, at least she wasn't like John's mum, who sort of after about the second series of Python sent him a cutting from the Taunton Times, or Torquay Times. It was an advertisement for a manager at Sainsbury's, and she said she actually knew somebody there, and she thought he had a very good chance of getting this job if he applied for it.
How did the death of Graham Chapman hit you a couple of years ago?
Well, I think it was, for us, it was kind of like the light going out. It was, you know, it was the spark of Python going, really. I mean, I don't think any of us would sort of ever consider sort of regrouping and sort of calling ourselves Python without Graham.
Looking back, Mr. Jones, on which is your happiest hour, what would it have been?
Oh, my God. I mean, apart from sitting talking to you, Clive.
Yes, apart from the present time, yes.
Well, my happiest hour, it's terribly impossible to say. It's usually what I'm eating at the moment, or...
As ephemeral as that?
Yes, or I am, I don't know. No, I think the happiest hour is my cup of tea theory, actually. Well, as long as you're having a cup of tea, that's near as you get to heaven, really, because when you're having a cup of tea, nobody can ask you to do anything else, because you're having a cup of tea. You know? So, I think that's the kind of time out that we all look for, really.
Terribly British, Mr. Jones, terribly British. You're here, you have opened, or are opening, or will open, or are able to open, or could possibly open, a comedy festival.
Yes, the Melbourne Comedy Festival. It's started on Tuesday, and they've got about 50 different things going on in 30 different venues. Really good stuff like Sean Hughes, very good Irish comic. Go and see him. Wendy Harmer's doing...
she's lovely.
She's great,
yeah.
I'm doing something. I'm doing a thing at the Valhalla Cinema, including showing a piece of Python that's never been seen by anybody. It was a bit we cut out of, in fact, 2 bits we cut out of Meaning of Life. We're actually going to show it for the first time to an audience on the 11th.
So Valhalla in Sydney or Melbourne?
In Melbourne, I'm afraid.
In Melbourne. Well, it's great to see you, sir, and I'm available for odd little parts.
I think we may have a part of you, actually, Clive.
I don't even mind a non-speaking part. I mean,
no, we've got a very
good...
good... I think
I really would.
I'm
not joking. I can do a few odd accents, but not Australian.
No.
Don't want to do Australian ones, mate.
Well, I think I've got something that's absolutely perfect for you, but you do have to dress up as a woman.
No, I think you've got the wrong person. There's
Really?
a few in this business here, yes. Up until that point, I felt terrific. Welcome to Australia, and thank you again for all the joy you've given me. You've made me laugh at things, which is really important. Terry Jones.